I am who I am. A declaration that resonates from the very center of the universe, a timeless truth, a revelation that has shaken the history of faith. In the middle of a desolate desert, where life seemed to be swallowed up by the intense heat and endless darkness, a bush burned without being consumed. It was more than a miraculous event, it was a symbol that transcended all material limitations, a sign of mystery, of infinite presence. Moses stood there, between the past and the future, between the mortal and the divine, between the confusion and the divine call. And then he heard that voice, not coming from the wind, not echoing from the mountains, but seemingly coming from the very essence of being, I am that I am. A statement that needed no explanation, a name unbound by any form or condition. He did not say, I am the light, I am the life, or any description that might confine him to a finite dimension. He simply was, self-existent, eternal, unchanging. But if, I am who I am, is just a theological statement, why has it touched the hearts of people through thousands of generations? Because behind that statement lies not only a revelation of God's nature, but also a divine invitation to each of us. In every uncertain moment of life, when everything around us is changing, when all values can be shaken, this statement rings out like an eternal beacon, I am still here. I am still who I am. And you are not alone. So how do we react to this revelation? Will we remain in disbelief, or will we step toward the light, toward the truth, toward the one who not only exists, but is the foundation of all existence? This is not a theological knowledge to be stored in books, but a call to embark on a journey of faith, a journey based not on the certainty of reason, but on the surrender of the soul. Let that declaration not only resonate in the mind, but also awaken the spirit, stir the heart, and open a new path, a path toward the one who always was, is, and will always be. The revelation of, I am who I am, in the encounter with Moses, standing before the burning bush, hearing God declare, I am who I am, Exodus 3 verse 14, is a symbolic moment, transcending time and space, affirming the self-existence of the Almighty, completely different from the Egyptian gods who were bound by nature and human rituals. Imagine the scene, a bush that burns without being consumed, a living paradox that leaves Moses in awe of the divine mystery revealed. The encounter is not just a historical event, but also a powerful invitation from the Almighty, challenging every notion of power, because he does not need to depend on ephemeral elements but his very existence is the foundation of all life. When we hear the words, I am who I am, we hear more than just a statement of self-affirmation, we sense an eternal commitment, a light that never goes out, a source of ultimate comfort for souls lost in the storms of life. It is like a lighthouse standing firm in the midst of a stormy ocean, guiding weary ships to safe harbor. It is a promise that, no matter what scorching trials or vast deserts we face, we have a constant companion. This revelation not only portrays a self-existent being, but also opens the door to understanding that, in every moment of difficulty, in every moment of loss, we can rely on a solid foundation, a being whose power is beyond all human understanding. From the perspective of ancient theologians to modern researchers, the statement, I am who I am, has always been seen as a declaration of independence, immutability, and supremacy, as a reminder that he does not need anyone's recognition or any conditions to exist. He is, and has always been, the source of all life. In the historical context, when surrounding cultures, especially Egypt, worshipped gods derived from natural phenomena such as the Nile, the sun or rain, the declaration of the Almighty became all the more striking and revolutionary, because it not only rejected old prejudices about the divine but also opened up a new understanding of the relationship between humans and God. Whenever we contemplate the scene of the burning bush that did not burn, we can think of difficult times in our lives, when everything around us seems to burn our souls but suddenly we realize that there is a light, an eternal power, that still exists and guides us through the storm. Moses' story, with humility and awe, becomes a model for accepting God's call, an invitation to a deep and personal relationship that goes beyond the surface of religious rituals or physical manifestations, but a genuine encounter, where the soul is enlightened by the presence of the Almighty. These words are not just words written on paper or spoken words that echo through time, but they contain a power of spiritual transformation, a power through which we are reminded that, no matter what challenges await us, we can always find comfort and strength in the one who never changes. It is from here that we are invited to embark on a spiritual journey, where every step is guided by a strong belief in the immutability of God, who is not only the Creator but also the protector and guide of each of us. The affirmation, "I am who I am," is also a reminder that God's existence is not limited by any material or spiritual element of this world, but it transcends all limits, bringing people a sense of security and boundless hope. Through every detail, from the image of the burning bush to the gentle yet powerful voice of the Almighty, we recognize that this is an invitation to a total transformation, from fear, confusion, and helplessness to confidence, peace, and a profound understanding of the nature of the universe. People who have experienced moments of despair often report that, in their darkest hours, they sense a faint but warm light, as if a divine fire were lighting the way ahead. That light comes from the declaration, "I am who I am," a promise that while everything around us may change, God's presence remains an unshakable landmark, a firm anchor for every soul seeking truth. The uniqueness of this message is that it invites each person to not only see God as a distant entity, but as a companion, a loving Father who is always there, ready to listen and help whenever we need it. When Moses heard the call from the burning bush, he was not only called to become a leader of his people, but also experienced a profound inner change, a spiritual awakening that made him reconsider the nature of faith and his relationship with the Almighty. From a theological perspective, the self-acknowledgement, "I am who I am," is not simply a title, but it is also a declaration of God's absolute autonomy and independence, an affirmation that he does not need any element or dependence to confirm his existence, which is the complete opposite of the idols that people often build, based on temporary and perishable things. This opens up a new way of thinking for those who pursue authenticity in their faith, encouraging them to abandon their dependence on the fleeting values of society and turn to a source of infinite comfort and strength. Through every story in the Bible, from the grandeur of creation to the prophecies of the prophets, we are constantly reminded of God's unchanging presence, and the declaration, "I am who I am," has become a symbol of that unwavering faith. In the modern context, when people sometimes feel lost in the constant events of the world, we need to remember that, even in the darkest moments, the light of the Almighty always shines, bringing hope and guidance. Moses' revelation is a powerful reminder that, although everything around us may change over time, God's presence remains a solid anchor, a source of inspiration for souls seeking the truth. When we delve deeper into the meaning of the phrase, "I am who I am," we not only realize the difference between God and the idols of the world, but also discover a theological depth, a depth through which each person can find the meaning of life and his or her own purpose. In this way, every step on the path of faith becomes meaningful. When we know that we are not alone in this journey, we always have an Almighty accompanying us, illuminating the path, dispelling the darkness and leading us to the shore of true faith. Whenever we face difficulties, we can remember that, as Moses witnessed, a miraculous event occurred, a bush that burned but was not consumed, as a promise that, even in the most difficult times, the presence of the Almighty remains, never fading. Always ready to bring salvation and comfort to those who believe. Always ready to bring salvation and comfort to those who believe. Always ready to bring salvation and comfort to those who believe. The manifestation of, "I am," in Christ is demonstrated through his powerful declarations such as, "I am the way, the truth and the life, I am the bread of life, I am the light of the world, and I am the good shepherd," which not only affirm Jesus' divine nature and supreme power but also invite us into a deep and personal relationship with him. When he declares, "I am the way, the truth and the life," he invites us to realize that there is no other way or method that can lead to salvation except through trusting in him. Just as the morning light dispels the darkness, this declaration creates an image of a path to eternal life, where every step is guided by the eternal truth and boundless love of the Almighty. When Jesus said, "I am the bread of life," he not only described himself as the source of nourishment for the soul, but also implied that true nourishment does not come from the ephemeral things of material life, but that only he can provide people with a lasting source of spiritual energy, a kind of bread that never runs out, bringing new life and renewal to every weary soul. the image of, I am the light of the world, is like a bright ray of light shining into the dark corners of the human heart, dispelling all fear, doubt and insecurity, opening up a new horizon of hope and truth, where his presence not only illuminates the path but also warms the hearts of those who are seeking comfort amid the trials of life. And finally, when Jesus declares, I am the good shepherd, he not only presents the image of a compassionate leader but also emphasizes the intimate relationship between the shepherd and his flock, illustrating that he knows each sheep, cares for each one, and leads them to green pastures, thereby inviting us to follow his example to live with compassion, humility, and a spirit of service. Jesus' declarations of, I am, contain boundless theological depth, as they do not stop at asserting power but also open the door for us to better understand the relationship between man and God, about how faith can transform both mind and soul, making each person alive, authentic, and meaningful. When we imagine the image of the gentle yet powerful morning light, or the image of the shepherd who is always devoted to caring for each sheep, we feel a spiritual strength that not only helps to dispel the darkness of uncertainty, but also nurtures a firm belief that even though the world changes in ways that we cannot foresee, there is always an unchanging one, an endless source of comfort, always by our side, ready to guide and protect us. The multidimensional perspective of Jesus' words, I am, does not stop at us understanding that he is the source of life but also makes us reflect deeply on the role of each person in becoming a living witness to that truth, when each individual is invited not only to receive but also to spread his light to those around them, turning each action, each word, each thought into pieces that contribute to creating a panoramic picture of true and living faith. Thereby, the declarations of, I am, become like enchanting invitations, calling each person to step out of the impasse of ephemeral values, temporary illusions to seek a true relationship with the Almighty, where each soul is respected, loved and cherished by a sacred love, beyond all limits of time and space. Deeply analyzing each statement of, I am, requires us not only to stop at mechanically receiving information but also to open our hearts, reflect and feel, so that we can transform those teachings into concrete actions in life, such as seeking the truth, living with sincerity and spreading his faith to the community, making every moment an opportunity to show love, care and gratitude to the one who has given us the strength to overcome all adversities. From the perspective of a longtime student of the Bible, we see that the words, I am, are not just statements for the listener to listen to, but also promises, commitments of the Almighty to each person, a promise of existence, of protection and of a meaningful life, in which each soul is invited to discover its true nature through the lens of faith, thereby abandoning dependence on material values and stereotyped religious forms, in order to move towards a personal, deep and inspiring relationship with God. Understanding the I am statements of Jesus also helps us to realize that faith is not just a static belief system but a continuous journey of transformation, of constant renewal of the soul and of growth in relationship with the Almighty, a journey in which every trial, every failure and every painful moment becomes a building block on a solid path to ultimate salvation and comfort. From simple but powerful statements like, I am the way, or I am the light of the world, we learn that life is not just a walk on a material path but also a spiritual journey, where every step is guided by a strong belief in the eternal truth of God, a belief that is not shaken by the events of life but always stands as an imperishable landmark, guiding and protecting souls in search of peace and hope. Moreover, Jesus' words, I am, open up a new understanding of love, empathy and human connection. When the image of the Good Shepherd is not only a symbol of care but also a reminder that, in a relationship with God, each person is cared for individually, loved completely and led to pastures of peace, where every pain, every disappointment and every fear is healed by his boundless love. From there, each I am declaration becomes an invitation not only to those who have known the faith but also to those who are lost, looking for a true source of comfort in life, as a promise that, even though the world changes in ways we cannot foresee, there is always a source of light that never goes out, a source of lasting inspiration and a deep relationship with the Almighty, who through each I am invites us to enter a sublime reality, where truth, love and life are blended together into a sacred symphony, touching the depths of the soul and giving each person a firm belief in the value of life. in the moments of reflection on the declarations of I am, we are invited not only to hear but also to feel, not only to understand but also to live fully with the message of salvation and renewal, as if each sentence contained a part of the eternal light, a part of the divine energy that can only be found in a true relationship with Jesus, from which we learn how to face challenges with faith, how to nourish our souls with respect, and how to spread love to everyone around us, creating a strong chain of links between personal experiences and the values of faith, bringing to life not only survival but also sublimation, a journey that leads people to overcome all difficulties, to a peak of understanding and of compassion. When we look at Jesus' words, I am, from a multidimensional perspective, we realize that faith is not just passive acceptance but also a learning process, a process of growth, where every experience, every challenge is transformed into a valuable lesson, enriching the soul and inspiring a strong belief in the ability of human beings to transform, because when we understand that everything originates from the Almighty, we will realize that no matter how difficult life is, we can always find an endless source of strength from Him, a source of strength that helps us overcome all limits, break down all barriers of insecurity and fear. In the biblical context, the imagery of the words, I am, is not just a simple statement but a profound metaphor, containing a universe of meaning, an invitation to enter a new depth of understanding of God and of man himself, a depth in which each person is encouraged to explore, to ask, and to seek, from which he is led to the truest truth about life. About our own purpose and our abiding relationship with the Almighty. From the words, I am, of Jesus we learn that faith is not just a response of the mind but a transformation of the whole person, a continuous process of opening the heart, of empathy, and of aliveness, where each person is invited to become part of a larger story, a story of salvation, of divine love and of life beyond all limits. In this way, each I am not only resounds as a divine declaration but also becomes a brick that builds the eternal tapestry of faith, a tapestry through which we are invited to walk, to live and to spread His light to all around us, making every moment of our lives a living witness to the love and unchanging presence of the Almighty. Through a careful and profound analysis of each aspect of Jesus' I am statements, we realize that each word contains an irreducible message, a message that requires contemplation, assimilation, and concrete action from each person, because true faith is expressed through acts of love, through humble gestures, and through the willingness to share eternal values with the community, thereby creating a sacred chain of links between individuals, between people, and finally between people and the Almighty. The words, I am, of Jesus, in all their simplicity and depth, become a compass for every person in their search for truth, for every heart that longs to be healed, and for every soul that desires to live fully in the light of divine love, where every anxiety, every fear is replaced by a firm faith and an inexhaustible consolation. It is thanks to a personal and profound relationship with the Almighty that each person can find the strength to overcome challenges, to conquer the storms of life, and to become living witnesses to life, to forgiveness, and to the infinite love of God. In this way, the expression of I am is not limited to abstract statements but is also expressed through the way Jesus lived, through the way He shared, through the way He treated people, turning each of His actions into a lesson in kindness, compassion, and a divine love that can only come from one who never changes. Throughout His life, from His teachings to His concrete actions, from the miracles He performed to the promises He gave, we are invited to realize that each I am is not only a declaration of His existence but also an invitation for each person to enter into a true, deep, and inspiring relationship with the Almighty, so that we can discover that faith is not just a system of rules or blind faith but it is a living process, continuously formed and developed through each experience, through each moment when we hear His call, when we feel His presence through the simplest things, like the light of a new morning, like the gentle sound of the wind, or like a warm smile in difficult times. That is the power of the words, I am. The manifestation of God's unchanging nature in everyday life is a profound spiritual message, portrayed through His indelible promises and imprint, as evident in such scriptures as, I will be with you, Exodus 3 verse 12, Isaiah 41 verse 10, Matthew 28 verse 20, and confirmed through the experiences of such biblical figures as David, who remained steadfast in the face of great trials. When we imagine God, We can imagine him as a solid rock amidst the turbulent waters of life, a foundation that cannot be shaken no matter how circumstances change, and this has inspired millions of souls through the generations, because when everything around us becomes uncertain, faith in the unchanging nature of God becomes a source of divine comfort and strength, just as Psalm 46 verse 1 promises that, "The Lord is our refuge and strength, an ever-present help in trouble." This image is not just a metaphor but a vivid demonstration of how human faith is built on His certainty, for when we face personal loss, betrayal or unforeseen events in life, we can turn to the eternal source of comfort that only God can give, as demonstrated by the heartfelt prayers and real-life stories of people who have gone through trials and found light amidst the darkness, such as the story of David facing Goliath, where his faith was not based on temporary emotions but on the assurance that God's unchanging nature would help him overcome any hardship. In the context of modern culture, when material values often prevail and people are easily caught up in the whirlpool of constant change, the message of an unchanging God becomes more necessary and precious than ever, because it gives us a solid foundation, a source of inspiration that helps us not only survive but also thrive in all circumstances, like a wall against all the storms of life. When we reflect on His nature, we realize that all changes in the world are fleeting compared to the eternity of God, and it is this awareness that helps us reorient our path in life, knowing that no matter how much time passes, no matter how much life changes, the promise, "I will be with you," will always resonate as an undeniable commitment, like a light guiding the way through the darkest paths. This is also emphasized by the way ancient prophets and theologians described Him, that He is not only the Creator but also the protector and guide of all souls searching for the truth, an image that allows each individual when facing the difficulties of life to find infinite comfort and strength, and this is passed down through classic stories such as that of Abraham, who believed and stood firm despite seemingly insurmountable challenges, or of Daniel, who, despite being threatened with death, persevered in prayer and was granted God's protection, thus opening up a new way of thinking, a multidimensional view of life, where faith is not just passive acceptance but a continuous process of transformation, of spiritual growth, through which each prayer, "I will trust in you," becomes a living declaration of faith, affirming that even when our hearts are weak or our minds are confused, God, the unchanging source of strength, is always present, ready to dispel all fears and give us new confidence to continue walking on the path of life. Furthermore, when we apply the message of God's unchanging nature to our daily lives, we find that it not only helps us find comfort in difficult times, but also encourages us to live a meaningful life, where every action, every thought and every gesture is shaped by faith in a being who never changes, an eternal source of motivation, making us more resilient and confident in the face of the challenges of modern society. For example, in family relationships, when things seem uncertain and conflicts increase, the awareness that there is a divine love that never fades will help each family member find empathy, forgiveness and strength to overcome difficulties together. Similarly, in the work environment, when we encounter pressure, competition and failures that can make us lose faith in ourselves, we can remember that God's immutability is a reminder that although everything changes, the true value of a person lies in faith and human qualities, and that is what only an eternal light like Him can give. By applying these values to our lives, we not only create a healthy work environment where respect and honesty are promoted, but also contribute to building a strong community where each person feels comforted and strengthened by a firm belief in an immutable being. Furthermore, God's unchanging nature is also a source of inspiration for art, culture and education, because it provides a solid framework of values for people to seek and express the noble values of life, from which art is not only a means of entertainment but also becomes a tool to convey messages about life, love and hope, messages that help us understand that, no matter how the times change, the core values of humanity remain unchanged, like the foundation stones of a strong culture. In literary works, when we read stories about resilient heroes who have overcome all hardships to seek the truth, we cannot help but feel the power of faith in an unchanging being, because through each page of the book, through each story, we see the image of people who have constantly struggled, constantly hoped and constantly sought God's protection, and that has created a panoramic picture of a Society in which, no matter how many events, love and faith in an eternal light always shine, leading people to overcome all challenges. From the perspective of a biblical and spiritual scholar, we realize that the immutable nature of God is not just an abstract concept mentioned in scriptures, but it is also a living reality, expressed through personal experiences, through sacred moments that people walk and feel, such as when we sit quietly by the riverbank, listening to the sound of flowing water, and feel a peace that cannot be described in words, or when we stand in the midst of the storm of life but still feel in our hearts a peace coming from an eternal source, which shows that the immutability of God is a living reality, a source of divine energy that each person can experience directly when we open our hearts and receive His light. From there, every prayer, every thought and every action of ours becomes part of a sacred relationship with the Almighty, a relationship that is not only based on words but is also built through concrete actions, through helping, sharing and loving, creating a strong chain of links between people and God, and that is the eternal message of unchanging faith, a message that enables each of us to live fully with the comfort, protection and endless strength that only He can give, because no matter how many ups and downs life goes through, the truth that God is always there, is always the inspiration, the motivation for us to move forward, overcome all barriers and achieve better things, from which, through living by the values of an unchanging God, we learn that each passing day is not just a series of fleeting moments but an opportunity to be strengthened by faith, to be healed through the wounds of the soul, and to be inspired by those around us, because each person who knows how to put his or her trust in a light that never goes out becomes a torch that spreads hope, becomes living proof of God's protection and boundless love. When we see His nature, we realize that everything in life has meaning, from the simplest joys to the most severe challenges, because all are woven from the thread of faith, of hope and of love, and that is what we need to live a full life, a life in which every moment is an opportunity for us to discover more about the eternal nature of God, so that from there we are inspired to live with gratitude, with respect and with strong faith in His divine power, a power that helps us not only overcome all difficulties but also turn each challenge into a valuable lesson. Thus, God's immutability becomes an example, a compass for each person in the journey of seeking the truth, in the journey of enriching the soul, and in the journey of building a life that is not only materially sustainable but also full of meaning, where each of our actions, no matter how small, contributes to creating a better future, a future in which the light of faith and divine love will always shine, guide, and inspire everyone around us. Through this, the meaning of God's unchanging nature in everyday life is not only perceived through the words of Scripture or through the stories of classic characters, but is also realized through vivid experiences, through the stories of ordinary people who have found strength from faith, through the testimonies of those who have overcome difficulties thanks to their faith in a God who never changes. And that makes His message not only a theological theory but also a lived experience, an affirmation that, no matter how the world changes, no matter how everything outside dissolves, inside each person there always exists an immortal source of light, an eternal source of strength woven from true faith in God, and that is why, in every step of life, no matter how many hardships there are, we can still find comfort, protection and strength to continue walking, because in each person's heart there always exists a song of hope. Hope, a song written by His unchanging promises, a song that never fades, always echoing through time and space, giving every soul a strong belief, a belief that, no matter where life takes us, we always have an endless source of inspiration from God, an inspiration that makes every person brave, strong and ready to face all the challenges of life. Thus, the immutability of God is not just an abstract theory but a living reality that is manifested through every moment, through every prayer, through every action of those who believe in and live according to Him, and through that, each of us is invited to live a life that is not only based on the ephemeral values of the world but is also built on the solid foundation of faith, where each person becomes a living witness of love, of forgiveness and of faith in an immutable being, a being who through each of His promises, we are empowered, healed and inspired to live a full, meaningful life and always towards the light of truth. These values, when applied to daily life, it not only brings stability but also helps us develop comprehensively, from physical, mental to spiritual, creating a deep connection between people and between people and God, and that is the eternal message of faith that we need to preserve and pass on to future generations, as a sacred heritage. Like a flame that never goes out in the hearts of those who have been living according to the words, Jesus also warned that not everyone who calls him Lord or performs miracles in his name is guaranteed entry into the kingdom of heaven. Authentic faith is not measured by outward actions but by a sincere, personal relationship with God, where faith is demonstrated through obedience to the will of the Father. In a world filled with voices claiming to offer grace, Jesus' warning remains timeless, as he compared false prophets to wolves in sheep's clothing, creatures that appear innocent but are actually poisonous and dangerous to the spiritual life of believers. This warning not only reminds us to be vigilant but also urges each person to seek a deeper relationship that goes beyond rituals and outward appearances of piety, because true faith is nurtured from within, built from a heart that knows and is transformed by the divine love of the Almighty. Imagine the parable of the two builders in Matthew 7 verses 24 to 27. One builds on solid rock and the other on shaky sand. The wise builder, shaped by a life of sincere obedience to God, stands firm when storms come, while the one who builds on sand collapses under the weight of trials. This parable emphasizes not only that true faith is not measured by miracles or titles but by the steadfastness of the relationship with God, by the way the heart is transformed and reflects the love of the Almighty. When we cultivate a loving and faithful heart, we become like a shepherd who knows each of his sheep, whereby our faith is not only expressed through external signs but is also measured by the depth of our spiritual connection with God, where every action, every prayer, and every thought carries the power of a true faith, unshaken by the fleeting illusions of modern society. In the historical context, when the surrounding cultures, especially Egypt, revered gods associated with natural phenomena such as the Nile, the sun and rain, Jesus' warning became all the more revolutionary, because it required each believer to overcome old prejudices, to abandon dependence on external rituals and to seek inner truth, a deep understanding of a personal relationship with the Almighty, through which each person not only became aware of the value of genuine faith but was also called to live a life built on the foundation of humility, honesty, and unconditional love. When we listen to the call of Jesus' warning, we realize that faith is not something to boast about or to impress others but an inner journey, a process of transforming the soul from the bonds of pride and prejudice to a state of serenity where faith is nurtured through obedience, acts of love, and a close relationship with the Almighty. It is this transformation that enables us to face challenges, dispels all fears, and helps us realize that, even when the world changes in ways we cannot foresee, there is one solid anchor, one unfailing source of comfort, and that is the unchanging love and presence of God. In every story of the Bible, from the prophecies of the prophets to the teachings of Jesus, we constantly see the image of genuine faith built on a deep relationship with the Almighty, and this is not communicated simply through miracles or external manifestations, but is demonstrated through the sincerity of the heart, through the way each individual is willing to sacrifice, forgive, and live according to God's teachings. For example, when we hear the parable of the man who built his house on the rock, we not only realize the value of building our lives on a solid foundation of faith, but also understand that steadfastness and loyalty to God will help us overcome the storms of life, like David, who, despite facing giants and inner threats, remained steadfast in his belief that God, the unchanging source of power, is always there to protect and guide. Jesus' warning about false prophets as wolves in sheep's clothing is also a reminder that in every soul, the distinction between good and evil is not based on appearances alone but must also be tested by actions and the sincerity of our relationship with God, because only a true faith, built on the direct experience of divine love, can bring true salvation and comfort to each person. When we see everything through the lens of true faith, we realize that every manifestation of God's favor is not the result of miracles or miraculous signs, but the result of a deep, personal and loving relationship, where each believer is invited not only to hear the word but also to live it, so that our every action becomes a living testimony to the protection and love of the Almighty, from which we not only find the strength to overcome all difficulties but also spread hope to those around us, helping them realize that faith is not just an abstract concept but a living reality, expressed through every prayer, every loving gesture and every step on the path of life. In the modern context, when material values and ephemeral achievements often cause people to lose focus on eternal things, Jesus' warning about false prophets becomes even more powerful, because it requires each person to be alert, to always ask questions and not to be deceived by external appearances, but to always seek the truth that lies deep within, a truth that only a genuine relationship with God can bring. Thereby, the call for authentic faith to become a journey of self-discovery, of continuous spiritual training, of growth through experiences and challenges, where every step we take is illuminated by the presence of God, helping us to realize that, no matter how the world changes and everything outside changes, the eternal truth of faith is always an irreplaceable support, a source of motivation for us to live a meaningful life, a life in which each person becomes a living witness to love, to forgiveness and to a strong belief in an unchanging God, a faith through which we are not only empowered to face challenges but also invited to spread the light of truth to the community, helping to build a society based on noble and sustainable values, where every human action is directed towards the noble purpose of life, of restoration and of salvation. From a multidimensional perspective, the warning against false prophets and the call to authentic faith are not only a theological message but also an invitation to a life of transformation, where each person is encouraged to face himself, to cast off the illusions of complacency and to open himself to a deep relationship with the Almighty, through which we learn that faith is not something to boast about but something to live, to feel and to transform, helping each soul to find comfort, to be healed through the wounds of the past and to be inspired to look forward to a bright future, where God's love and protection are always present, never fading. Thus, each of Jesus' warnings becomes a reminder that, no matter how many false voices there are, no matter how many apparent miracles may stir the heart, only genuine faith, built on the foundation of a deep, personal relationship with God, can bring true salvation and hope, opening a path that leads us from lostness to wholeness, from darkness to light, from fear to love and freedom. Through each story, each parable and each teaching of Jesus, we realize that true faith is not something that can be measured by temporary signs or temporary miracles, but something that develops over time, is forged through life experiences and is strengthened through a close relationship with an unchanging being, where every step we take is guided by the unwavering belief that, even though the world changes in unpredictable ways, there is a source of light that never goes out, a source of endless comfort, and that is God's promise, the promise that He will always be by our side, protecting, guiding and loving us, no matter how many difficulties or challenges we encounter in life. Through that, the call to authentic faith not only reminds us of the need for a genuine relationship with God, but also ignites in each soul a flame of hope, a desire to live fully in the light of truth, a desire to overcome all the limits of insecurity, to become courageous, resilient and always ready to face all the challenges of life with the belief that, no matter how many false voices are heard around, only one eternal promise can be the compass for each heart, that is, the promise of God that He will never abandon, will always be present and will give us the strength to live a full, meaningful life, where every action of ours not only reflects God's love but also is a commitment to live by true faith, a faith built on the foundation of honesty, humility and obedience, and through which each of us becomes an inner leader who can confidently walk through everything. The storms of life, bringing the light of faith and love to those around them, building a community in which each individual feels the warmth, protection and encouragement of an inexhaustible source, the God who never changes, who through each warning against false prophets and each call to true faith, we not only learn to distinguish between good and evil but also realize that true faith is nurtured through constant contact, through listening, reflecting and living out the teachings of God, through which each person is invited to become a living witness of love and salvation, to become a leader, an inspirer of the community, and ultimately, to become an integral part of a sacred story, a story of salvation and hope, a story in which, despite the changes around us, Jesus' promise of authentic relationship, of a true faith, remains. Faith, proven through sincere obedience, has always existed, has always been the solid foundation for each person, helping us not only survive but also thrive, shine and spread His love to everyone around us, a strong reminder that true faith is not just an affirmation but also an action, a way of life, expressed through every smallest action, through every sincere gesture, and through that, each heart becomes closely connected to the eternal light, to the boundless love and protection of God, who alone can give us a life full of hope, a life built on the foundation of truth, of steadfast faith and of divine love, and from there, each person not only feels the change in themselves but also inspires the whole community, creating a sustainable chain of links between individuals, where each of our actions contributes to building a better world, a world in which the light of God's faith and love shines, guides, and gives every heart a strong belief in His unchanging presence, because only true faith, nurtured through a deep relationship with the Almighty, can overcome all the limits of uncertainty and create a full, meaningful, and inspiring life, so that Jesus' warning about false prophets and His call to true faith become not just a theological lesson but a living message that touches the depths of every person's soul, a message that, in the journey of seeking the truth, only a personal, deep, and genuine relationship with God can be a source of comfort, strength, and guiding light for every soul, no matter how many challenges we encounter in life, because the promise that God is always with us always resonates, like a strong invitation, reminding us that faith truly does not come from external manifestations but from the vitality of a heart transformed by His love, a heart ready to listen, ready to learn and ready to communicate sublime values, through which each person is not only given the strength to overcome all hardships but also invited to become living witnesses of love, forgiveness and steadfast faith in an unchanging God, who at every moment, no matter how many ups and downs life faces, His love and presence are always the light that never goes out, guiding every step, creating a sacred journey, where every experience, every pain, and every joy blend together to form a panoramic picture of faith, of hope and of salvation, through which each person is affirmed that, no matter how everything on the outside changes, inside each of us there always exists an immortal light, an eternal source of comfort built on the foundation of love and faith in God, and that is why Jesus' warning against false prophets and His call to authentic faith hold a special place in the heart of every believer, as a promise that, no matter how many false voices are raised, only genuine faith, nurtured from within, can lead us to true salvation and peace, creating a life that is not only spiritually sustainable but also meaningful, where each person is called to be a guardian, an inspirer and a spreader of the light of faith to all those who are looking for hope, and in doing so, to build a strong community where every heart can find comfort, healing and support from divine love, because only true faith, nourished through a deep relationship with the Almighty, can overcome all the limitations of uncertainty and create a life that is fulfilling, meaningful and inspiring. Jesus' warning about false prophets and His call to true faith becomes not just a theological lesson but a living message that touches the depths of each person's soul, a message that, in the journey of seeking the truth, only a personal, deep and genuine relationship with God can be a source of comfort, strength and light to each soul, no matter how many challenges we encounter in life, because the promise that God is always with us always resonates, like a strong invitation, reminding us that true faith does not come from external manifestations but from the vitality of a heart transformed by His love, a heart ready to listen, ready to learn and ready to conveying sublime values, through which each person is not only given the strength to overcome all hardships but also invited to become a living witness to love, forgiveness and a firm belief in an unchanging God, who at every moment, no matter how many ups and downs life faces, His love and presence are always the undying light, guiding every step, creating a sacred journey, where every experience, every pain, and every joy blend together to form a panoramic picture of faith, of hope and of salvation, through which each person is affirmed that, no matter how everything on the outside changes, inside each of us there always exists an undying light, an eternal source of comfort built on the foundation of love and faith in God. And that is why the warning about false prophets and the call for true faith of God Jesus holds a special place in the heart of every believer, as a promise that, no matter how many false voices may be heard, only true faith, nurtured from within, can lead us to true salvation and peace, creating a life that is not only spiritually sustainable but also full of meaning, where each person is called to be a guardian, an inspirer and a spreader of the light of faith to all those who are looking for hope, and thereby, building a strong community where every heart can find comfort, be healed and be sustained by divine love. Because only true faith, nourished through a deep relationship with the Almighty, can overcome all the limitations of uncertainty and create a life that is fulfilling, meaningful and inspiring. Jesus' warning about false prophets and his call to true faith becomes not just a theological lesson but a living message that touches the depths of each person's soul, a message that, in the journey of seeking the truth, only a personal, deep and genuine relationship with God can be a source of comfort, strength and light to each soul, no matter how many challenges we encounter in life, because the promise that God is always with us always resonates, like a strong invitation, reminding us that true faith does not come from external manifestations but from the vitality of a heart transformed by His love, a heart ready to listen, ready to learn and ready to conveying sublime values, through which each person is not only given the strength to overcome all hardships but also invited to become a living witness to love, forgiveness and a firm belief in an unchanging God, who at every moment, no matter how many ups and downs life faces, His love and presence are always the undying light, guiding every step, creating a sacred journey, where every experience, every pain, and every joy blend together to form a panoramic picture of faith, of hope and of salvation, through which each person is affirmed that, no matter how everything on the outside changes, inside each of us there always exists an undying light, an eternal source of comfort built on the foundation of love and faith in God. And that is why the warning about false prophets and the call for true faith of God Jesus holds a special place in the heart of every believer, as a promise that, no matter how many false voices may be heard, only true faith, nurtured from within, can lead us to true salvation and peace, creating a life that is not only spiritually sustainable but also full of meaning, where each person is called to be a guardian, an inspirer and a spreader of the light of faith to all those who are looking for hope, and through that, to build a strong community where every heart can find comfort, be healed and be sustained by divine love. Touches the depths of each person's soul, a message that, in the journey of searching for the truth, only a personal, deep and genuine relationship with God can be a source of comfort, strength and guiding light for each soul, no matter how many challenges we encounter in life, because the promise that God is always with us always resonates, like a strong invitation, reminding us that true faith does not come from external manifestations but from the vitality of a heart transformed by His love, a heart ready to listen, ready to learn and ready to communicate noble values, through which each person is not only given the strength to overcome all hardships but also invited to become living witnesses of love, forgiveness and steadfast faith in an unchanging God, who at every moment, no matter how many ups and downs life faces, His love and presence are always there. The lamp that never goes out, guiding every step, creating a sacred journey, where every experience, every pain, and every joy blend together to form a panorama of faith, of hope and of salvation, through which each person is affirmed that, no matter how everything on the outside changes, inside each of us there always exists an undying light, an eternal source of comfort built on the foundation of love and faith in God. And that is why Jesus' warning about false prophets and His call to true faith always hold a special place in the heart of every believer, as a promise that, no matter how many false voices are heard, only true faith, nurtured from within, can lead us to true salvation and peace, creating a life that is not only spiritually sustainable but also full of meaning, where each person is invited to become to be guardians, inspirers and spreaders of the light of faith to all who seek hope, and in doing so, to build a strong community where every heart can find comfort, healing and uplifted by divine love. Touches the depths of each person's soul, a message that, in the journey of searching for the truth, only a personal, deep and genuine relationship with God can be a source of comfort, strength and guiding light for each soul, no matter how many challenges we encounter in life, because the promise that God is always with us always resonates, like a strong invitation, reminding us that true faith does not come from external manifestations but from the vitality of a heart transformed by His love, a heart ready to listen, ready to learn and ready to communicate noble values, through which each person is not only given the strength to overcome all hardships but also invited to become living witnesses of love, forgiveness and steadfast faith in an unchanging God, who at every moment, no matter how many ups and downs life faces, His love and presence are always there. The lamp that never goes out, guiding every step, creating a sacred journey, where every experience, every pain, and every joy blend together to form a panorama of faith, of hope and of salvation, through which each person is affirmed that, no matter how everything on the outside changes, inside each of us there always exists an undying light, an eternal source of comfort built on the foundation of love and faith in God. And that is why Jesus' warning about false prophets and His call to true faith always hold a special place in the heart of every believer, as a promise that, no matter how many false voices are heard, only true faith, nurtured from within, can lead us to true salvation and peace, creating a life that is not only spiritually sustainable but also full of meaning, where each person is invited to be guardians, inspirers and spreaders of the light of faith to all who seek hope, and in doing so, to build a strong community where every heart can find comfort, healing and support by divine love. Each person is not only given the strength to overcome all hardships, but is also called to become a living witness to love, to forgiveness, and to a steadfast faith in an unchanging God, whose love and presence at every moment, no matter how many ups and downs life may face, is always a light that never goes out, guiding every step, creating a sacred journey, where every experience, every pain, and every joy blend together to form a panorama of faith, of hope, and of salvation, through which each person is affirmed that, no matter how everything on the outside changes, inside each of us there always exists an undying light, an eternal comfort built on the foundation of love and faith in God. And that is why Jesus' warning about false prophets and His call to true faith always hold a special place in the heart of every believer, as a promise that, no matter how many false voices may resound, only true faith, nurtured from within, can lead us to true salvation and peace, creating a life that is not only spiritually sustainable but also full of meaning, where each person is called to become a guardian, an inspirer and a spreader of the light of faith to all those who are seeking hope, and through that, build a strong community, where every heart can find comfort, be healed and be sustained by divine love. Each person is not only given the strength to overcome all hardships, but is also called to become a living witness to love, to forgiveness, and to a steadfast faith in an unchanging God, whose love and presence at every moment, no matter how many ups and downs life may face, is always a light that never goes out, guiding every step, creating a sacred journey, where every experience, every pain, and every joy blend together to form a panorama of faith, of hope, and of salvation, through which each person is affirmed that, no matter how everything on the outside changes, inside each of us there always exists an undying light, an eternal comfort built on the foundation of love and faith in God. And that is why Jesus' warning about false prophets and His call to true faith always hold a special place in the heart of every believer, as a promise that, no matter how many false voices may resound, only true faith, nurtured from within, can lead us to true salvation and peace, creating a life that is not only spiritually sustainable but also full of meaning, where each person is called to become a guardian, an inspirer and a spreader of the light of faith to all those who are seeking hope, and through that, build a strong community, where every heart can find comfort, be healed and be sustained by divine love. Those who inspire and spread the light of faith to all those who seek hope, and in doing so, build a strong community where every heart can find comfort, be healed and be sustained by divine love. Those who inspire and spread the light of faith to all those who seek hope, and in doing so, build a strong community where every heart can find comfort, be healed and be sustained by divine love. And to develop spiritual strength and resilience, we need to master the key points: unwavering faith, constant prayer, selfless service, facing trials with faith, radical forgiveness, and complete surrender to God's will. These are not mere moral principles but the foundation for overcoming difficulties, maintaining morale in the face of life's storms, and walking in the light of God. Remember Abraham, the father of faith. He was not a man who blindly followed faith, but had confidence based on God's promises. When commanded to leave his homeland, he did not know the destination, but he obeyed. When promised a large family, he had to wait for decades while old age hindered all hope. And when he had a son, God asked him to sacrifice him, a test that seemed beyond anyone's endurance. Yet it was because of his steadfast faith that Abraham was greatly blessed. His story is a profound lesson for each of us. When life is uncertain, when the future is uncertain, when we feel abandoned, remember that God is still in control. Faith is not an escape from reality, but a confidence in reality, believing that everything is in His good plan. Nowadays, we often lose patience when faced with challenges, easily doubt when our prayers are not answered immediately. But look at the lives of godly people in the Bible. They went through severe trials to hone their faith. True faith does not shine only when everything is favorable, but it is in the most difficult times that it proves its worth. If you are facing difficulties, remember that God has a bigger plan than you think. Sometimes He delays not because He wants to disappoint you, but because He is preparing you for something better. Next, let's pray continuously. Stay connected to God. Prayer is not just a ritual, but the heartbeat of our spiritual life. It is an intimate conversation with our Creator, where we pour out our hearts, seek guidance, and receive spiritual support. Think of Daniel, who persevered in prayer 3 times a day despite the threat of being thrown into the lion's den. He did not let fear disrupt his connection with God. As a result, God miraculously protected him, proving that those who are faithful in prayer will never be abandoned. Prayer is not just a time to ask, but also a time to listen. Picture Elijah on Mount Carmel, praying for rain during a long drought. He knelt down, praying over and over again, until he saw the sign of a small cloud. This teaches us that sometimes the answer does not come immediately, but perseverance in prayer is the key to unlocking the door of blessings. When we take time to pray, our hearts will be more peaceful, our minds will be clearer, and our souls are stronger to face all circumstances. In addition, selfless service. When we give, we receive. Jesus humbled Himself to wash the feet of His disciples, an act that was supposed to be done by servants. This shows that true greatness lies not in position or power, but in the willingness to serve others. When we serve without expecting anything in return, we are reflecting God's love and kindness. Service does not have to be grand. Sometimes, just a smile, a word of encouragement, a small help can change someone's life. When you serve others, you are also opening your heart to receive blessings from God. It is in giving that you will find true joy. We will face trials of faith. Let fire test gold, adversity test strength. We cannot avoid trials in life, but how we face them will determine our spiritual strength. Look at Job, a man who lost all his possessions, children, and health, but still did not turn away from God. He understood that life is not only sunny days, but also storms. But even in the midst of loss, he still said, "Though God slay me, yet will I trust in Him." And in the end, God restored everything to him, even giving him more than before. Trials are not a sign of abandonment, but an opportunity for us to grow. When you face difficulties, do not despair, but see them as a test of your faith. Remember that gold becomes pure only when it is tested by fire. Likewise, our souls will be stronger when we know how to rely on God in the most difficult times. And don't forget radical forgiveness. Freeing your heart from burdens. Forgiveness is one of the hardest things to do, but it is the most necessary for a peaceful life. Remember Joseph, who was sold into slavery by his brothers, and went through so much pain and humiliation. But when he had the opportunity to take revenge, he chose to forgive, telling them, "You meant to harm me, but God turned it around for good." Forgiveness not only frees others, but it also frees you. It frees you from the bondage of bitterness and resentment. If you are holding on to resentment, remember that forgiveness does not mean forgetting, but giving up judgment and giving it to God. When you forgive, you allow your heart to heal. Finally, surrender completely to God's will. Relinquish control to receive blessings. In the Garden of Gethsemane, Jesus prayed, "Not my will, but yours be done." This is the greatest lesson in surrender. Sometimes we want to control life on our own terms, but that only leads to anxiety and frustration. When we learn to surrender to God, we find peace and strength. Remember that God has a better plan than you can imagine. As you learn to let go and put your trust in Him, you will find doors of blessing opening up in ways you never expected. These keys are not just theoretical lessons, but principles of life that bring peace, strength, and blessing. If you apply them to your daily life, you will find your faith strengthened, your soul healed, and your life filled with more meaning than ever before. In this challenging journey, each of us is invited to walk in God's light, allowing faith to be a beacon that illuminates the darkest times. Take time each day to listen to God, to have your heart renewed, to have your soul strengthened in His presence. Don't let the busyness of life separate you from the one who loves you unconditionally. As you walk in obedience, you will find blessings opening up, peace filling your heart, and your life taking on deeper meaning. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, thank you for your unwavering love and guidance. Help me to be strong in faith, faithful in prayer, and persevering in trials. Give me a heart that loves, forgives, and surrenders to your will. Make me a light in the world, so that I can spread your love and truth to everyone around me. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. God's Word is our constant source of life and truth. Listen to Him daily and let your heart be filled with peace and wisdom from above. Share this message with those who need support, for you may be the one God wants to use to bring hope and change to their lives. If this message resonates with you, please support the channel by subscribing, liking, and sharing so that more people can join us on our journey of faith. May God bless you and your family abundantly.